Hello and welcome to Analyzing the Analysts. Here we're going to be taking a look at Plat Chat's top 10, top 15 even, uh, player power rankings for the champs. So let's get into this. We'll start off by looking at their top 15s from Tokyo. Here we've got a great performance from Ticina, and we've got two Brits making up 2 and 3. You got to represent. We've got a couple of ties coming in at 4th and 6th. Dryad and Wyatt, Bala and Tombiz representing the more reasoned side of Plat Chat. And then we've got Brennan Mimi coming in doing well. MCE making a solid debut. Achilleos, the overall average, Paper Thin, Ender, Alan, Yinsu, Tiger, Asarai, and rounding out the list in last place we have the man, the myth, the legend, Joshua Sideshow Wilkinson. There was a lot of difficulties there. A lot of the lower ranks were to do with people rating DRX particularly highly, and some other EU teams who we won't talk about. Yinsu suffering from rating IGLs, which when compared to a statistical rating never seems to go too well. So let's move on. That's how we're going to do this. We're using VLR's rating. It's nothing fancy. It's not the perfect method, but it is a method. The error is just, how wrong were you? Useful error is we don't care if you were wrong because you thought they were worse or because you thought they were better. You're wrong. And the average is an average. And we're going to, it's better to have less error, obviously, no matter what some people might try and tell you. Unfortunately, we're losing MC, Tiger, and Asarai, and but we are gaining a whole host more. I'm not going to list everyone, but we have a good group going. So unfortunately for our original competitors, that means they will slide down the rankings just by weight of numbers. And so let's start us off. So in 26th, unfortunately, we have Alan dropping 11 places down to 26th. This is again, it's a bit of a Pacific bias here causing this. Coming in next, we've got RKT also suffering, but not last on a debut. So we take those. Yinsu down 8, but considering we added 10 people, not too awful. Again, this was involved a lot of having IGLs in her top 15. I believe Boaster, Chichu, and Boostio were all in the top 15. And there was also some rating of players like Laz from Zeta who, shall we say, didn't have the best of tournaments. Next up, Gatatovsky, probably pronounced wrong, but who knows. Paper Thin and Space, respectable debuts, not in the bottom 3. Paper Thin drop in 9 places. We'd like to be able to do a bit better than that, but we'll see what can be done. Now into the top 20. Tombiz plummeting 14 places is a poor showing from a fellow European member, I suppose. Won't get into not being EU. And then we have Kakuka debuting at 19th, beating out Tombiz. It's a pretty good showing. Into this, we got Mitch, Mimi dropping 11 places. Unfortunately, however, cats have 9 lives, so we will be hoping for some better displays coming up in the future. And Doug debuting at 16th. Respectable performances, but this isn't impressive. Coming up next, we've got Achilleos dropping only 4 places down to 15th, remaining solidly middle of the pack, as evidenced by the Plat Chat average, which is right next to him, dropping a couple of places, but when you consider that you added 10, half of 26 would be 13, so on average, the analysts make the average worse than it maybe could be, which is always weird to see, but Bala dropping 7 places, a rough showing for Bala this time, but consistently remaining the sanest member of Plat Chat. I have no doubts that he won't bounce back. TMV dropping down 9 places here, a rough showing. There was a lot of overrating of DRX players, and interestingly, rating Paper X players didn't go so well, despite the fact that they placed second in the tournament, their individual players actually rated relatively low on average. It was very much a team effort, which is something you don't expect to see once you've seen the highlights of players like Jing and something. Golden Boy debuting at 11th, in the top 50%, very respectable. Golden Boy worth the shout out, because if you look only at the playoff statistic, Golden Boy actually jumps up to first place with an incredibly bold prediction of Demon 1 right up at the top, and nailing it with that one. Really coming in clutch for his playoff rankings. Next up, we've got Chobra, and debuting top 10. Gotta respect it. Dryad dropping 5 places, not a bad showing given we added 10 people in, but I have faith she can get back up. Wyatt dropping down 4. These two were tied for 4th last time, so staying paired up. Maybe they're collaborating. I don't know. I don't necessarily know why they would, but it would be an interesting dynamic. Ticina dropping 6th place from 1st overall. It's a rough showing, but 7th is respectable. Absolutely. And here we have our first player who has climbed the rankings, Brendan Hook, looking very polished in this photo, is climbing up from 8th to 6th, and having a very respectable top 10 while he's at it. So top 15, which is very nice to see. And that brings us to our top 5. And you'll notice there's someone who's been missing from who was on the Tokyo list, who you haven't seen yet in all the other places, who you might have expected to. And actually, Josh Sideshow Wilkinson has climbed 14 places to place 5th overall, and here, from the look of his face, he can't believe it either. A fabulous performance from Josh, and frankly puzzling. I'm sure we'll all expect to see him resume his rightful place somewhere lower down the leaderboard later on. Next up, we've got XRS, and debuting at 4th is a very respectable thing. It doesn't look quite as impressive when it says you're 1 place above Sideshow, but we'll see. Sliggy dropping 1 to 3rd, but still a very good showing, and Sliggy has remained very consistent, placing 2nd the Tokyo top 15, and 3rd overall is on average definitely doing the best of anyone who was at both Tokyo and champs for the Plat Chat top 15. Next up, Ender climbing 12 places overall, an unbelievable showing, and frankly kind of overshadowing Sideshow's meteoric rise, which is pretty damn impressive. And first up, we have a debut of Niang, who comes in and snipes the number 1 right off the top and kicks everyone else out. One thing that your 1, 2, and 3 had in common was a pretty good rating of loud players, not willing to count out their Tokyo performance, and that really helped keep them up here. An accurate rating of players was just crucial to that. Niang in particular was able to correctly predict 1 ranking perfectly, and 4 players he had only 1 place off. So that meant that 5 of his top 15 he only had a total error of 4 points on, which frankly is just unbeatable, and that's why he's in first. So here we go. Here we can see the overall list, and you'll see there's a trend of a lot of the APAC talent who had faith in teams like DRX and Zeta and T1 suffering their region's woes, and also the fact that PaperX, like as I said earlier, didn't have the statistical performance reflected that their run perhaps deserved. So suffering there. Some key numbers for you quickly. We had an overall average error of 18 places. Out of 80 players, the talent was on average 18 places wrong, so not bad at all. If you were as wrong as you could be, I think you'd be 65 places wrong as your average error, and if you were just to take it as an average, you'd be about 30 places wrong. So to reduce that by over a third is incredible. Niang in particular had an average error of 10 places, which is 66% better than an average random guess, and was 3 places ahead of second place, which was just unbelievable. No one came close. Unfortunately, we have to look at the other end of the spectrum, and Alan had an average error of 29 places, which at that point you might as well use a random number generator, and did put him six places of average error behind 25th. So a really rough showing for Alan, but worth coming around, giving it another shot, I think. And here you can just sort of see a distribution of roughly where everyone sits. You've got the sort of the big clumps in the middle, and down at the bottom we've got standard deviations, which is, basically, if you look at the average of how far away from the middle everyone was, Nying was twice as far away as average, and Alan was almost 3 times further away, which is like a 1 in 100 chance of happening, which is a real rough showing. So now we can do some interesting stuff when we look at these ratings, and we can figure out who the underrated and overrated players were. So starting us off with overrated, Haodong and RB, a couple of APAC players and the Chinese region, who were overrated massively by 27 places and 22 places respectively. However, I haven't included these as your most overrated because, frankly, they weren't picked very much. Haodong's 4% corresponds to 1 person, and RB's 19 is what, 5 people picking them. It's not a huge overrated by group. Whereas Kanka, on the other hand, 22 places overrated, did not have as good a performance as he did at Tokyo, and that, with a 96% pick rate, is just not good enough, and really cost the people who had Kanka high up the list. But the worst offender there was Chronicle, 26 places overrated on 92% of lists, with Fnatic going out early and Chronicle not having a dominant performance. It really was a step too much. Now onto the underrated, Aspas. Only -4 places. It's much harder to underrate people by a lot if you've only got 15 on a list. But with an 85% pick rate, meaning 15% didn't even have him on the list, and the average was still, of the people who did have him on the list, was -4 places. So clearly a very underrated player, but not so much as Les, his teammate. 7 places underrated and only on 62% of lists. So the average of 7 places underrated is just of the people who had him on the list. Everyone else had him even below that, frankly, which seems astounding in the moment. Off the back of Tokyo, maybe understandable. And first on the most underrated was Demon One, -8 places on a 73% pick rate. 25% of people didn't have your tournament MVP on their list of the top 15 players. It's as simple as that. Simple as that. Which brings us on to the 16th player. Named after the 21st player from their original top 20 rankings from the original champions. This is the player who didn't make it onto any lists at all. Not even a single list. And by the raw statistics of the overall competition, 6th overall statistically. However, for me, that didn't ring true, right? The team went out 0-2. Can't really call them, the best player we all forgot about, because how much of that is some of the weirdness of only playing a minimal number of maps. So I went and looked for who realistically I thought the 16th player might be. And I came up with Cowanzine, who had placed 9th overall and 4th if you looked at the playoff only statistics, yet did not make it onto a single list, despite in both overall and the playoffs being a top 10 player. Not a single person rated them as top 15. So for me, Cowanzine has got to be your 16th player. And so that brings us to the end. I want to say a big thank you to the Plat Chat guys for doing this. It's always an entertaining watch and always fun to poke a bit of fun at, which is all this is. None of this reflects on the players, of course, just the casters, and even then, they're doing it for a bit of fun, and it's all in jest. So go and check them out, send the love their way, and yeah, maybe we'll be back for another one next event. Thanks for watching.